Welcome, welcome. It is the end of our series. Thank you guys for journeying with us with Honor Gen. If you were with us, then you got to hear all about how the different generations learned about honor and how to show it. Honor is just a biblical word for respect, right? And we learned with the beginning of the series with the Gen Z group a little bit about how y'all are learning about what honor means. Then we moved on to millennials and we had our student leaders share about what it was like to grow up in Gen Y and what she learned about honor and what that generation learned. Then we moseyed our way on and we learned about Gen X, the forgotten generation, and what they learned about how to show honor. And then we finished up last week with our baby boomer and we learned a little bit about what times were like then and how that shaped honor. Well, tonight, what we're doing is a little bit different, and I hope it's going to be fun for you guys. We want this to be lighthearted, and we want you guys to be really fully engaged. Tonight, we're having the full panel, and we're inviting you to get on the mic. We have Mr. Ray and Mr. Joe that'll be roaming around with the mic, and if you're ready to answer or ask a question, just raise your hand, and they'll get it to you. But we want you to ask questions of the panel. So this can be towards a particular generation, or this can be for anybody on the panel, and you just ask the question and we'll answer as we feel led. These are questions about what it was like for us in different generations, questions about honor, just whatever Holy Spirit puts on your heart. There's no dumb question. We want you guys to have fun with us. We want you to get to know us. It's really about relationship building most of all tonight. But before I invite our panel up, I do want to give you one quick learning moment, deep learning moment. So why, if you didn't catch on, which I'm hoping you did over the course of the series, why are we focusing on honor so much? I mean, we know it's biblical. We clearly have seen all the different scriptures from week to week to week that show that God cares about honor and he wants us to care about honor. But I'm going to tell you, there's a really broad theme biblically that has to do with honor. We show honor not just to glorify God, not just because it's important to God, but we show honor because God created humans, right? He created human life. He created humanity. And when we show honor to each other, to other human beings, we're showing respect for God's creation of human life, right? We talk about pro-life, the unborn babies, yes. But we're born babies, and we need to honor each other too. Because if we're all talking pro-life, but then we're totally disrespecting our neighbor, we're being hypocrites. So the whole idea is that God's creation of humanity is worthy of honor, worthy of dignity. And this panel is, we're not the experts, we're not the end all be all, but we're gonna just answer as honestly as we can based on what God shows us or has shown us in our lives. So what I want you guys to do now is, as I prepare to announce our panelists, I want you guys to get loud, cheer them on, clap. Let's give a round of applause for our Gen Zers, Miss Raya and Mr. Jean. And wouldn't be complete if we didn't have our resident millennial from Gen Y. Please welcome Miss Elizabeth to the platform. All right, in addition to moi, we've got our fellow Gen Xers, and tonight we've got Mr. Rich and Miss Sarah. Come on down. And last but certainly not least, our resident baby boomer, Mr. Mick. Come on down. All right, guys, so we're gonna have a seat. And what I want y'all to do is just raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question of any of us, any generation, or just to all of us, and we'll answer as we feel led. Again, Mr. Ray and Mr. Joe have the mics, so just put your hand up. You will have to stand up and then have the mic passed down, all right? Who's gonna be our brave icebreaker to kick us off and show some leadership tonight? I hear lots of laughs. Oh, I see Addie. Come stand up, Addie.
Yeah.
Thank you, Addie.
Yeah, girl.
Okay, so you can't choose your own, is it generation? What is your favorite generation? You can't choose your own generation.
That's a good question. Anyone can start. Think about it.
I'm going to say baby boomers because they're so fun. Like all of the baby boomers I know at church, I'm serious. They're just so fun and have so many fun stories to tell and just don't take life so seriously. Like every time I just talk to a baby boomer, someone from that generation, they're just funny and they have lots of stories and equal fun and stories to wisdom too. So I know that it's just a well of life every time I talk to a baby boomer. So thanks, Mick.
I'm going to agree. I would pick baby boomer as well, Mick. You know, and I think I think it's not that life was simpler back then, because life was still hard. There was still a lot of challenge. But I loved that there weren't as many. Today we have a lot of distractions. Gen Z has a lot of distractions with all the information and all the technology, and it's a blessing and a curse. But I love the simplicity of times, you know, before my generation, actually. So I would pick Gen X, but we weren't allowed to pick our own. So I'm going to say baby boomer.
I'm going to pick one that's not up here, and it's Alpha. I love them because I think because of all of what you see up here, if you don't know, Alpha is the little ones. They ask like the best questions, and they don't care. Like my daughter the other night asked me, why don't people listen to God? And she actually wants to know the answer. It's like there's this curiosity about the world and what's going on, and I feel like it's because there is so much information out there, so their little brains are already starting to go. So I really enjoy talking to little ones.
I like that we learned about a new generation, Alpha. So these are the elementary kids. These are like preschool and stuff.
Yeah, ones that haven't even been born yet.
And ones that haven't been born yet. That's so cool. Anyone else want to field that? A favorite generation that you're not in?
I think my favorite generation is middle schoolers, regardless of what generation they were in. I love middle schoolers, especially the middle school boys, because they had this super powerful Pentium processor with no hard drive.
Gen Z for the win.
And so I love them because we have such an opportunity, God working through us, to pour into you all, because you're going to face a challenging world. And it's more than just a positive outlook. It's knowing Christ and knowing him richly, memorizing his word, not so you become a parent, but so he has something to talk to you with, so you can distinguish between his word and your feelings. You know, and if you can get that, you're on your way. You know.
I guess mine would be Gen Z also. So for the simple reason of the amount of power that you guys have and are going to have, like, we are counting on you. Future generations and older generations are also counting on you. So that would be my favorite generation outside my own, but I'm with Anna. My generation is my favorite just because what we got to experience, but I would say Gen Z.
Anyone else want to answer?
I really like Gen X. I feel like every Gen X that I talk to, they love their generation and always say theirs is the best. And I kind of believe them. I mean, they like pop culture. Like, there's a lot of pop culture moments, like the music, everything, the video games coming out. There's so many cool things happening around that time.
Jean just scored points. Elizabeth, did you want to weigh in?
The only reason why I haven't weighed in is because I can't decide, because every generation has its own like pros and cons. If I had to choose, I would probably agree with Jean. I would have to say Gen X. I think because as somebody who was born in the millennial generation, that's kind of the generation that I was molded by the most. So that would be like my parents and their friends and just all the adults that I had when I was growing up. And then just kind of being influenced by those, and I agree, the music was probably the best in that generation. Like, I look at my own, the music that I listen to, and it's all stuff from like the 70s and 80s, and I love it. And so yeah, I would probably say Gen X as well, because that's probably the generation that shaped me the most.
Good answer. I'm gonna throw something out there that's not really questionable because you guys brought up music. Even though I do love Gen X, and that's like what I would pick. I'm gonna say I really did like the millennial era music. Rich just gave me the look like, what? You just betrayed Gen X. I love Gen X music, don't get me wrong, but I really did like millennial music. So yes, I'll go, I'll say she's like, what? Okay, I betrayed my generation, but I just did. I did, so.
They wrote Call Me Maybe. That's a good one.
I'm not going to say all of it, okay? It has, what was that Rebecca Black song? It's Friday or whatever? No. You're welcome. Now it's in your head. All right, anyone else have a new question? All right, go ahead and stand up, Sophia.
This question is kind of like Addie's. What was your least favorite generation?
I have a very easy answer. Gen Z. I'm just kidding. Well, okay. I think a lot of people in Gen Z are really just like, because everyone is so involved in social media, not everyone has really strong formed opinions. So that's the only thing that I'm like, eh. But I feel like the grass is always greener on the other side. Like, we're always going to look at other generations and be like, man, I really love that they had this, this, and this. So obviously living in my generation, I'm like, wow, everyone around me is really making really poor choices and saying really dumb stuff on the internet. But I don't know. I guess there's pros and cons to everyone. But sometimes I'm like, come on, Gen Z, get your act together. Like, invent something scientific or do something better than tweet something. Anyways.
See, I actually do feel like Gen Z has the greatest potential. I was just having this conversation earlier today with one of my friends because they said, oh, what are you doing today? And I said, well, at work, with quotes. We're doing a series and we're finishing it up. And so that started the conversation between them and I. And they were asking me, well, what do you think about all the different generations? I said, I really see the most potential in Gen Z. And he agreed with me. He's like, I don't work with students the way you do, but he said, I see what you're talking about. They're an empowered generation to do so much more than other generations ever could, and the drive and the desire to do it. So, not to disagree, but yes, but I'll say I have the generation I think that would be my least favorite. And it's not represented up here. And I think it's the one before yours, before baby boomers, the silent generation, only because that poor generation, they went through the Great Depression. I mean, they went through rough stuff, like World War II. It was just like everything. Not that we haven't had bad things in our generations, we obviously have, but I feel like that was just a somber generation. So for me, I know that built a lot of character in those individuals. Those would be like my grandparents' generation and your parents' generation, Mr. Mick. And I have a lot of respect for them, but I don't envy that they had to live through all that stuff. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, that generation had a lot of tenacity. I mean, World War II, we didn't know we were going to lose our freedom, lose our country, and there's a lot of fear. People basically homeless that just a few years earlier had something when the stock market collapsed, and everything people had their faith in as far as material possessions was gone. And it was a really, really tough time. I remember my mother telling me about it. She said that, they didn't know if they were going to eat every night. They'd have to stand in a line and get soup, and they had to be in bigger cities because the smaller cities didn't have the resources. It was a really difficult time for them.
I don't have a least favorite generation. I would just say, to answer your question, there are certain things that frustrate me about the generations that are after our generation. And it's really in the aspect of technical things. It's like, what do you mean you don't know how to start the car without the key, right? Not every car is push button, right? There was a time where we would turn it to start it or roll the window down. Sometimes Tyson's we had to rent a U-Haul truck the other day and you had to roll the window down and you thought the world was gonna end because you couldn't push the button to put the window down. I'm like, this generation here is frustrating, right? But it is what it is. That all comes with technology. So I don't have a least favorite generation. It's just certain things surprise me or maybe frustrate me about the ease that the generations after us may have.
Anyone else want to field that one? Least favorite?
Again, I don't have a least favorite. I think everybody equally has some downsides to their generation. I think what it is for me is people who do not learn from the previous generation. And that is in every generation that happens. It's people who see what came before and still kind of keep that attitude of like, well, you guys just did it wrong. We're going to do it right this time. We're going to do it exactly the same way, but we're going to do it right this time. Instead of people realizing the mistakes that came before, and instead of blaming people, look at maybe the way they approached it. Because I think there's a lot of good that's come from the generations as we go down. We have a generation over here who wasn't really allowed to talk about their feelings, all the way down to a generation here. That's all you guys talk about. Yeah. And I think there's something to learn all throughout here. That there were downsides to not being able to talk about the things that were troubling you, but there's also downsides to taking every feeling and thinking that's reality. And so I think for me, it's more when we just sit in those little bubbles that we have and say that you guys just don't understand. Of course we do. We just came from a different way of dealing with it. But together up here, there is, and not like tooting our own horn or anything, but there is wisdom to be gathered, because I know there's wisdom that I've gathered from people before me. And it doesn't mean you have to do it the way they did it, but hopefully you can learn from the mistakes that they made.
You know, there's a lot of us that have experience, but experience is not a synonym for wisdom by any means. There's just a lot. You get wisdom out of this, you know. I think one of the challenges, there's so much information that all the newer generations have to absorb, because now they're talking about artificial intelligence. They're talking about all these things that are coming down the pike that you all will experience. I'll be out of here. I'll be wearing food, this carcass, but I'll be with the Lord. So, but I think about what you all have to process. And what I was talking to Anna about this, it just seems like there's so much information that you have to process that it's almost like I can't spend much time on any one little piece of information, so you never really get rooted into that information, and that's where Satan can kind of take advantage of us, and because we don't go to God's Word and we don't learn from His Word and we don't have that relationship with Him through prayer and through studying the Scriptures. And so anyway, we navigate through life, and then we say, oh, God isn't answering my prayer, so now I'm going to do this on my own. And this usually happens to a good percentage of students as they go through high school and go off into college. And so my encouragement is always that if you draw near to God, He'll draw near to you. If you seek Him with all of your heart, He promises He'll reveal Himself to us. And so, but the challenge is, do we really spend the time we really need to spend getting to know Him, this invisible relationship, this spiritual relationship through the power of the Holy Spirit? It takes tenacity, effort, will, blessing, all these things, and I'm encouraged because of this group and the job Miss Anna's doing here to lead you all. I didn't know what to expect when I came here, but she's doing a great job, and I think all these leaders here, you're very blessed to have them.
Well, we give glory to God for that, right? Let's give glory to God. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, because He's the reason we're here. Did you guys want to weigh in too, or skip? All right, we're gonna move on. Next question. What do you guys got? Oh, we got. I love Steve. You guys are great. Let's go with Haley first, and then we'll work our way around.
What was your favorite part in life?
Favorite part in life?
Like, do you mean like favorite stage of life? Okay.
Season, maybe.
Mine was definitely childhood, because in my generation, we had the best of both worlds. When I was probably middle school, high school, is when we started to see we were on the cusp of like technological change. And by the time it was the end of high school, we started really seeing that. We started seeing cell phone usage, and there was email starting to emerge, and all of that stuff. But prior to that, we didn't have all of that. So it was very exciting to see all of that emerge. And I loved also not having it prior. I mean, you don't know what you don't know. So if you never had social media, if you never had cell phones, you don't know that life is so much harder without having all that communication and that access. It's simpler and it's kind of fun. And so I enjoyed my childhood in particular.
So paying bills is not fun. So anything after like college, that's not the fun part of life. But it can be. But I vividly remember like 10th, 11th, 12th grade year. Like those are fun years, right? You're driving, you get a little bit of independence, but you're also like building really cool relationships with people that after you graduate high school, you may go to college with, but you always will keep up with them. And not all of them, but for the most part, you can look back on like your senior year, junior year, and be like, oh yeah, there's 10, 12, maybe even more people that you still associate with and maybe are still best of friends. And so to me, that I can look back on my like senior year, specifically in high school, like best time of my life, for sure.
The favorite stage of my life would probably be the stage I'm in now. Yes, childhood was really cool because even though I had technology growing up, it wasn't like the way it is now. Everything wasn't as automatic. And so I still got to know what life was like to be able to play outside all day and well after dark and not have to worry about, all sorts of stuff that we have to worry about now. And so that was really cool to be able to say that I experienced that. But I really love this stage of my life right now because as an adult, I have all the freedom in the world to make any decision I want with my life. Whereas a kid, you don't have all the freedom in the world to make the decisions that you want with your life because you're still growing, you're still learning, your brain is still developing, you're still figuring out who you are. So yes, you do need your parents and other adults in your life to help guide you through that. But as an adult, and you're able to make those decisions, you're able to say, man, I finally get to have this experience that I was never allowed to have growing up. Like, for example, I always wanted to take dance classes when I was a kid. I never did. And I finally did. In my adult years, I think I took like one class. But still, I went out and I did it. And I'm like, hey, I never got to do that before. So it's really cool to be able, like, as an adult, you can still satisfy your childhood wishes that you feel like you didn't get to have as a kid. You can still have that experience and not feel like you missed out anymore. And it's really cool to be able to help yourself that way and realize that you do have all the power in the world to be whoever you want to be and do whatever you want. Yes, there are consequences to every decision that you make, whether that be good or bad consequences, and that's why we should always rely on the Bible to guide us through what decisions are good and what decisions are bad. But yes, to answer your question, I would have to say my favorite stage of life would be the one that I'm in right now because I'm still young enough to still experience all the new things in life that I may not have gotten to experience growing up.
I think my favorite stage of my life, like Elizabeth, is the one that I'm in right now. Just because I'm in college, but I also work here at the church doing ministry. And what's so cool about that is I'm in somewhat of, I want to say, a safe environment doing ministry at a church. But then I'm also in a very interesting environment in college. Well, I love school. Like, I love doing school, so I love studying what I love to study. And you guys, whenever you go to college, you'll study what you love to study. But I love being able to come back and do ministry with people that I know believe in the Lord for one part of my day and then go on the mission field for another part of my day. So I think that relationship is really interesting. But I also love it because I feel like there's so much anticipation. And that's one thing that I want you guys to really learn is I grew up thinking in my head that the Lord really had a calling on my life because my parents would always tell me that, people in ministry would always say, you have a really big calling on your life and you have a big purpose for who you're supposed to be. And so I don't want you guys to think like, oh, when I get older, I'm just going to do the old 9 to 5, clock in and out. I'm not going to have a big purpose on my life. I'm just going to kind of have a family, live, whatever. Like a lot of people are going to tell you college is going to be boring, life is going to be boring, but you guys have huge callings on your life. And I want you to look to the future with anticipation of knowing like, college doesn't have to be horrible, and you know what I'm saying? So I love where I'm at right now just because of the freedom that I have to study what I love to study in school, but also there's just so much anticipation for what I'm going to do afterwards. So yeah, I really love it.
I know you all think I'm crazy, but I agree right now because I have so much in the wake of my life. And if you notice on Sunday, we come to 9 o'clock. I have a whole row of students that are grown. Some of them have children, married within their youth group and everything like that. And I just remember what John said in 3 John. He says, I have no greater joy than to know that my children are walking in the truth. And so the reality is when it's all said and done, would it be nice to be young and be able to jump like you guys and run and all that stuff? Yeah, but you know what? There's something deeper inside that goes on other than this carcass that has much, much more value than me going back and being younger. So I would have to say for me right now, just being able to watch, Jesus said in John 15:5, I believe it is, he said, I am the vine and you are the branches. He said, without me, you can't do anything. And so to watch you all, and some of you will, some of you may not, decide that you're going to take the Lord serious and not take yourself as serious and really enjoy being young, but also enjoy growing deep in the scriptures. And so God can speak to you. And it's exciting to watch this garden grow, and I'm excited for you guys in the future. I really am. And now.
Anyone else want to build it? Sean, Sarah?
It's really hard to pick a favorite. I mean, I just look back in life. I'm like, I love a lot of my stages of life. Right now, I really like this stage because I'm about to get married. So the anticipation, just like, how is it going to be next? I've never been married. So, so just very excited for what the future holds. But I also like my college years. Just like Raya said, you kind of get to choose like what you want to study. And like Elizabeth said, like you have a little bit more freedom and you're able to like pursue those hobbies that you wanted to pursue when you were a kid, but for some reason you couldn't. And now you can. So I did a lot of that. And so I don't know. I can't pick a favorite. I love my life.
I'm going to answer different. Whatever's to come, that is my favorite because I've had so many different stages of life that I've appreciated, and I can't wait to see, good or bad, what the next stage is because it helps you grow. And I wouldn't trade any of the things that have came before or what I'm currently going through right now if I could go back and change it. I think, like as Mika was saying, yeah, would we love to have the energy back and when you get up, like everything hurts for no reason. It would be nice to go back to that, but I already lived that life, and I'm glad that I was able to maybe learn hard lessons, but take those with me. And I can't wait to see what right now is going to do for the future.
Makes me think of the best is yet to come, the biblical phrase. And, we're all answering based on our earthly life and experience. But I think we would all agree that the best stage of our life is going to be the afterlife. It's going to be when we're with Jesus, when we're in heaven. And that goes for all of us, which is kind of crazy because, a lot of us don't. It's hard to even begin to comprehend what that's going to be like. We're just scratching the surface when we say, yeah, we know it's going to be great. We're going to be pain-free. We're going to be brand new bodies. But we won't really know just how incredible that is until we're there. So all we can do is just kind of scratch the surface of how great it's going to be. But these are great questions. I saw several people over here. New question. What do we got? Okay, Matthew, we'll go with you, and then we'll go with Joshua. Tap it a couple times. There we go.
What was considered like the really high-tech technology back then?
What was like the high technology thing for each generation? What was like the thing? All right. Who wants to kick us off with that?
Nintendo. Oh my gosh. It was like
1986,
amazing.
guys.
Like the best. If I ever got to play it, because I had 4 brothers, so it was usually me watching them play. But if I got a chance, I loved Zelda, Link to the Past, best game ever. Really hard to play now. Oh my gosh. But yes, that was like high tech right there. And I also remember standing in line with my dad to buy my brothers a Game Boy that they had to share. So that was another one.
We had to make our own toys. I'm serious. We had to
dad
make
told
our
me
own
the same
toys.
thing, Mr. Mixo,
How many
I
of you know
believe
what a spool is? It has thread on it. Well, we used to take a Q-tip and we put a rubber band through the middle of the hole of the spool and then put a thumbtack on one side of it and then put that Q-tip on the other side and wind it up, and that became a little car that would go along. I'm not kidding you. That's what we had to do for toys. We didn't. There was no such thing as an electronic device that didn't have a wire that was plugged into electricity. And the generation before mine, they actually didn't have so much electricity. So the telephone, they actually had a generator that they cranked up, and it built electricity so it could send the signal through the wire. It's pretty interesting.
I remember being in my 20s, probably around Jean's age, and the big thing was an iPod. Not an iPad, an iPod. It literally was like the size of your phone, but it had like music, all your MP3s or whatever on there, and you just walked around with your little earbuds and whatever. And I just remember like I got that for my 25th birthday, and I freaked out because I couldn't get over like, oh my gosh, because I was used to like cassette players or CDs, so to have that was amazing. And now that's like, seriously, that's so obsolete, but that was it for me.
Even before that, it was Discman. Remember when Discman came out? So when we were growing up, like if you wanted to like go on a run and listen to music, you had to have a Discman, and it was like a box. It was like this big, and you could like attach it to your belt. And it was a CD player, and you fold the cap down, but there's no earbuds, so you had to like get a cord that would like go to your head. It was the most awkward like foam pads that you would have on your ear, and like you would start running if you did run, and like it would skip the whole time. Like so, like as the song would get going, or the CD would just like fall out, and you're just like, what is the purpose of this? So when the iPad or the iPod Nano came along, it was like, whoa, this is incredible, right?
You know what a CD is?
Yeah.
I know with a DVD and a CD, it's like maybe that was before, right? Sorry.
Okay, anyone else want to weigh in?
I feel like
This is fun.
in my lifetime, like as a kid and like maybe preteen years, that's when technology was really like blasting out stuff. And it's like you would be on one thing for 6 months, and then the next big thing would come out, and then the next thing after that, and it was just all over the place. But I remember maybe it probably started with the iPods when I was a kid, and then it kind of transitioned into the iPod Touch. It wasn't like the iPhone. It was like everything else but the phone part. So there was that. I had one of those, and I thought I was just all that in a bag of chips when I had one of those. So there was that, and I remember that was also when the Wii came out, and that was the biggest thing.
Yes. The Wii was insane.
So that was probably that was like one of the bigger things when I was a kid growing up.
So for me, actually, I remember when the Xbox Kinetic or something came out, which is like a camera that's attached to your gaming system, Xbox, and it tracks your body, like with no controller. And I remember when that came out, and I was like, we're in the future right now. We are in the future.
I was going to say the biggest thing that came out before 2012 was probably Siri, like just being able to hold your little phone down and then someone talks to you and tells you jokes and can flip a coin and find any app when you want to. So I thought Siri was pretty crazy. But right now, I guess I was thinking right now, and I was thinking AI is pretty crazy too. Like you can just type in a write me an essay and someone will write a whole essay for you.
Raya, the funny thing about Siri, this is like the old person edition. Like the younger people are like, I ask her jokes and I ask her to like flip a coin. You know how I use Siri? When I lose my phone, I go, hey Siri, until I hear her wherever she is in the room pop up. And then I'm like, that's where she is. So that's how I use Siri.
Yep.
But all right, Joshua, you had a question.
So, what is something that you've learned from each generation?
Good question. Who wants to kick us off?
I feel like I've learned a lot from different people, but I don't necessarily keep track of what generation they're from. I just learn from them. I'll think about it.
I'm just going to start throwing stuff out there while everybody thinks. I feel like and you can also see this in the way we presented stuff, from baby boomers, I learned a lot about the power of Scripture and how Scripture can be applied. Like what I've noticed about your generations, put very, very high authority just on the Word of God, which is so cool because sometimes that gets lost in my generation that strayed so far from that textbook application that now you have anything but the Word of God. So I think from specifically that generation, you learned a lot about that. From Gen X, you learn a lot about interpersonal relation and how the Word of God can be applied to daily life. So that's really cool. And then millennials, obviously, in a lot of books, they call them mosaics because they know how to relate emotionally to the Bible. They prioritized, has anybody ever heard the phrase that it's a relationship and not religion? Has anybody ever heard that phrase? That kind of came from millennials because millennials really revolutionized, like, you don't go to church just because that's what your parents do. You go to church because you have a relationship with Jesus. So it's cool because it's a very long spectrum of the way you not only study the Word of God, but apply it. So I've learned a lot of like life skills from my parents who are, I think I have no idea, Gen X, right? Yeah, so I've learned a lot from my parents who are Gen X. So yeah, that's cool things about the church and about ministry that I've learned from each generation. I didn't know what they were. I was like,
I think what I've learned from all the generations from way back then, or way back up to where I was, I think the thing that I learned the most is that all generations are full of sinners, and all generations need Christ. And the thread that runs through that whole thing is the ones that seek Christ, they do well. They may go through a lot of stuff. They could go through sickness, injury, but knowing inside that God's in control and that, he has a purpose for their life and what they're going through at any given season or time brings great comfort to me to know that he's working through all those generations.
I feel like there's something that we can take away from every generation. And I guess just going through the generations that we have right here on this panel, one thing that I can take away from baby boomers is the importance of hard work. True. And the reward of hard work. Because in a world where everything now is so automatic, we don't appreciate things as much. We don't value things as much. And so the baby boomer generation had to work hard for most of the things that they had, if not all the things that they have. And so they were able to appreciate it more, and they had more gratitude, and they were probably happier in some aspects than how we are today. And so that's one thing that I can take away from baby boomers. And then with Gen X, I feel like Gen X has so much heartbreak within it. And that's something that I can learn empathy from. Because Gen X was like my parents and that age group, that's one of those things where, yeah, you can look at your parents and see all the mistakes that they've made, but then as an adult, I can look back and realize that they did the best with what they had. And they come from a generation where they weren't as educated as we are now about emotional health and mental health. And being able to just be healthy individuals and be able to raise healthy individuals as well. And so I'm able to learn empathy for that generation. And then I can learn within my own generation, because you're always going to find somebody different than you in your own generation. And so it's really cool how somebody can have the same general experience, but somebody's got a little bit more, I don't know, I want to use spices as an analogy. Like, this person can have a little more salt in their life, and they teach you how to have a little more salt in your life, and that person might have a little more paprika in their life, and they teach you how to have a little more paprika in yours, if that makes sense. And then Gen Z, I feel like Gen Z teaches me patience. Because I work with Gen Z a lot. I have since I was 21 years old, and they teach me patience.
So I'm going to answer as quickly as I can. With the baby boomer generation, 1,000% agree that work ethic and being thorough and putting in the time and the dues was something that I learned from. Independence within my own generation, kind of resilience and resourcefulness, because you kind of had to be in a lot of ways. With millennials, just as Elizabeth said, there was a greater awareness of mental health, but really work-life balance. So it's not getting rid of the work ethic that the baby boomers taught, but it's learning how to work smarter, not harder. How to really prioritize mental health and family and other things that are important aside from just work. So those were things that I saw. And then with Gen Z, what I really love about you guys that I notice that I'm always in awe of in such a good way is I think all previous generations, we were either taught or somehow it was just culturally the norm that there was like a certain way to do things and you needed like permission to do these things. And Gen Z, y'all are like pioneers. You don't wait for permission from anyone. You just get out there and create stuff, do stuff, run stuff, make stuff, and then it's like really good. And it's like, wow, who showed you how to do that? Because it's just a level of freedom and again, empowerment that your generation has to explore and to do those things. And so I think that's really cool. And I love that about your generation. So we're gonna see if anyone else wants to, otherwise we'll move on to the last question of the night.
Yeah, I want to say one quick thing about that. We did have to work hard because we didn't have the technology. I mean, start off with nails, and then they had air-powered guns that would shoot, and now we have computer-driven routers that basically will, like a cookie cutter, cut out all the parts for a cabinet, or robots that weld machines on the assembly line to build cars and stuff. But now your generation is working a lot. They're taking this technology that they have to have, and you're being overwhelmed because they expect you to get more because of the cost and expense of that technology, and they're trying to get more out of you productively, which can create stress. So stress is real easy, I think, for your generation because of that very reason, whereas we were able to physically get, tore. At the end of the day, we were tired, we were sweaty, we had dirt on us, and we felt good. We earned our paycheck, but it's different now.
So how many of you, put your hand up if you wanted to ask a question. All right, because there's so many of you, here's what we're gonna do. Each one of you, I'm gonna try to get to all of you, but only one of us is gonna answer it, okay? And you can either direct it to one of us or we'll just decide. So we're gonna start with Mr. Joe. Go ahead and grab Zariah and go ahead and ask the question.
What's one piece of information that you now know that you didn't know when you were growing up that you wish you knew?
All right, anyone want to field that one? Mr. Mick.
How deceptive Satan is and how tricky he is and how he can throw you off and ruin your life with your will if you don't know what's in here and really begin to recognize him and how he shows up in the different seasons of your life.
All right, keep your hands up if you wanted to ask. Okay, so we're going to move to Hannah.
How hard was it to follow God even though life around you tried to distract you from your faith?
Great question. Who wants to field that one? Go ahead, Rebecca.
I feel like whenever I don't even know how to begin to answer this. When I hear follow God, I think of daily discipline to pursue a relationship with Jesus. And I think especially with so much access to so many distractions, it is very difficult to follow God in an era where you sleep with your phone beside your head and you wake up and immediately you go to school and you do sports and you come home and you do your homework. So I think following God and pursuing a daily relationship with him is especially hard. But what I learned is that nothing else, no sports, no activities could ever fulfill you like Jesus does. And that doesn't give you the purpose that you need. That doesn't fulfill your friendships, your relationships. So if you're filling your time with all of these things and you don't leave any room to pursue a daily relationship with the Lord, none of that other stuff matters. So that's both one piece of advice that I learned, but it's also hard to follow Jesus because there's so many distractions. So just keep that in mind, that one of the enemy's tools, a lot of people say if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. So a lot of the enemy's tools right now is that the devil is making Gen Z really busy and really distracted. So just be aware of that.
Good. All right, hands up again. Who we got? All right, Mr. Ray, let's get with Thomas.
If you could move to a different generation, which one and why?
Oh, wow, that's a good question.
Oh, that's really good. All right, who wants to field that one? Thomas, do you want to ask a specific one of us? You don't care? Okay. Anybody? Who we got?
I think if I had to move to a different generation, it would probably be my parents' generation. Because their life was so much harder, but they were so much more appreciative and thankful for the little things that were good, rather than taking so much for granted like my generation and ones after me can easily do.
They were known as the silent generation just because of the heaviness of everything. All right, hands. Let's see. All right, let's get with Hannah Fitzgerald. Can we get Hannah Fitzgerald? Okay.
What were the differences, like with growing closer to God in your generation compared to the past generations?
Go ahead, Sarah.
Just from watching, because I love like old movies, I love just history. I'm sure, Mick can speak to this. There was this kind of strictness to how you entered the house of God. It was very much outward. It was very much your appearance. It was very much like how your family looked, how often you went, how much money you gave, that type of thing. And I feel like slowly what you started to see is the outward facade started to drop off, and people started to become more inquisitive about why they believed, not just what it looked like. I think that's why a lot of people believe that we're a Christian nation, is because there was a respect for Christianity that is slowly eroded away. But with that respect eroding away, it's made everybody within the church have to really look at what it is we say we believe. And just like Mick was saying, like the foundation is there. That truth is there. It's universal throughout every single generation from the very beginning all the way till now. That the foundation, the truth is there. It's how we approach it that changes from generation to generation. So it's going back to that building your house on rock. If that rock isn't going anywhere, that rock has been there from the beginning. And when we build it on sand that is shifting and moving and constantly, like there's no security in that, that is where I think getting away from the strictness of maybe like the 40s, 50s, 60s, once the 60s hit, you started to get that hippie generation coming to church going all about like their feelings and thinking about things a little more, and it started to bring a little more looseness in there. Some people say too much, but I'm just happier in the door. If you're wearing sandals and shorts, awesome, you're here. And I think it's starting to make it more, it's relationship, but yes, it's also tradition and religion. It's both. And I feel like that's what we're getting more and more out of now, and that to me is the differences that you see, is that each generation is hopefully strengthening our convictions and our resolve to seek the truth.
right. Hands. Let's see. All right. Can we get David in the back?
So, excluding COVID, what event that you witnessed do you think changed the world the most?
For our generation, that's easy. It's 9/11. We were probably all like college. Yeah, I remember I was at Daytona Beach Community College, and I was going from one class to the next, and everyone was in this cafeteria area. They didn't serve. They had like a cafe, but it wasn't like a lunch line thing. It was just TVs up, and everybody was in there, and you're like, what's happening? Like nobody knew what was happening, and like I think we've like heard of terrorism, but like I never like put two and two together, and I was like, this is an accident. Surely it has to be an accident. But from that day on, like it changed everything, and it still does today. Like think about how we do air travel today, or things that we have to deal with from a global aspect. Just being in our country, right? But that event for sure was a complete game changer, life changer, and still is today.
All right, hands. Let's get Lyra.
What is something that you like that's in a different generation and not yours?
I'll take that one. So a different generation and not mine. I do love... Actually, Mr. Vic just said it, and I'm going to actually go with what he said. I do love, I've gotten into slow jazz lately, and I'm not saying we don't have that today, but like vintage 1920s slow jazz, I am really digging that lately. We did not really listen to that in my generation. There was not as big of an appreciation for it because our generation by and large was like hip hop and R&B, and then like rave and pop music. It was like those three genres were like blowing up. I want to say like the older Gen Xers definitely have more rock, but the younger Gen Xers, which would classify the three of us because we were right on the tail end between millennial, it was kind of that, those were the musical genres. But yeah, so that's what it is, Mr. Mick, you're right. Okay, more hands. All right, Charlotte, you're going to be our last question.
What is something that your generation made that the next generation made worse?
Okay, say that one more time. That was really good.
What is something that your generation made that the next generation made worse?
Something your generation made, but the next generation made worse. Good question. Who wants to field that?
I have it. So, it's not my generation, but I think and again, it's really easy to pick a certain thing, but I would say it's when any generation devalues the most innocent of its children. And it's happened multiple times. So we can pick now and we can say abortion, and that would be easy, but this is just a cycle that we keep repeating. And I'd say anytime a generation starts with devaluing children and that next group just keeps going to the point where it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, we had children working in factories in the Industrial Revolution. They would die in those factories because out of a necessity to have money for people who are poor and struggling. And we had people take advantage of that and use those children to do that. We've had people burning their children to gods in the Old Testament. I mean, it's constant. And whenever we take the most innocent, the ones we're supposed to be shepherding, the ones we're supposed to be teaching, and we treat them as if we can just throw them away or use them. To me, that is one of the worst things that we can perpetuate. And we sometimes will go up on the thing as, let's value children again. And then we go right back down again. And sadly, I think the reason that we see so much of it today is because we have a large group of people, and it's not just a specific generation. They just don't want to grow up. They don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to teach the next generation. They just want things handed to them. They want to live their life as, I've heard a term called kidults, which is like strange. They did a survey and found out that the biggest readers of the digital teen Vogue are women from 18 to 35. It's teen Vogue. 18 to 35-year-olds are reading this. The largest consumer of toys is adults. And there's nothing wrong with having fun, and there's nothing wrong with playing games. But we are slowly becoming people who do not want to grow up. It's very likely that if we keep going the way we are, there will be less children, less marriages, because people will see that as growing up and not wanting to do that. So, and it's not to like discourage you or make you think that like, oh, there's no hope. Because hey, it's a cycle, and it keeps going, and it will keep going until Jesus comes back. And so what that is our wake-up call. So you see, like, people are waking up and realizing that I don't want this life anymore. Because one of the things I'll say that is very, very encouraging is they also did a study, and they talked to people in your age group, and they said they no longer want to see sex scenes in movies anymore because that is private and personal and intimate. And I'm like, amen, that you guys are starting to realize that there is sanctity in all of this stuff. And I am praying that you realize that there's sanctity in life. Because yes, we can take something good, or we can take something that we start and we can make it worse, but we can take something that's bad and we can make it better. And I know, and that's what all of us are up here doing. We want to give you the truth of the gospel that you can stand on and make this a better generation than what came before. So guess what's coming up next? I told you my favorite, Alpha. They're looking at all of you. And you guys could be right up here talking to them and the ones to come after them to show them that, no, we do not have to live of this world, but we do live in it. And so we have to remember the truth. And that is what is so important to all of us up here, that you guys understand. You do not have to believe these lies because this thing tells you every few seconds that that's the new way. That's the way we're going to know. That's sand. And we have the rock, which Mr. Mick brought it up here. And you guys have it in your phones, and you have physical copies of it. And if you wake up every morning, and this is how you have a relationship with God, do you wake up every morning and not talk to your siblings and not talk to your parents? No, that's how we have relationships. We wake up every morning and we talk to people, talk to our friends. It's as simple as that. It's a little difficult because you're not hearing that back, but you will when you learn how he talks to you. And that's what it's about, is that's how we learn from one another, is because we have the ultimate authority to learn from.
You guys, this was great. I want you guys to give a round of applause once again for our panel. Panelists, you may be seated. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And we're going to move on to our last portion of the night. But before I do that, and before I give you guys the highlight announcements, let me hop up here because I'm short. Y'all can't see me. Okay. I want to give you guys a compliment. Okay? I underestimated you. Bad Miss Anna. Bad Miss Anna. Why'd you underestimate this group? I shouldn't have done it. I wasn't sure that y'all were going to come prepared. Wasn't sure that y'all were even going to take this serious, and wasn't sure that y'all were going to have courage to ask these questions. So you know what I did? I asked a couple of the leaders and said, hey, here's some questions just in case nobody wants to ask anything so that y'all could ask. None of our leaders had to ask a question because you guys showed up prepared. You took it serious. You asked good questions and you had courage. Give yourselves a round of applause. Yes. I was so proud of you guys. I was sitting here so proud of you because I saw that these were not even just questions off the top of your head. I saw y'all with your phones and your papers where you had written it all down and came prepared. Thank you. You want to know something? What y'all did tonight showed all of us honor on the platform. And so thank you. And I want to show you honor by just, again, telling you how I appreciate you. Okay.